I'm not much for going around telling what happens to me on the road, but this thing I lived through, buddy, I can't get it out of my head. And believe me, I've seen strange things in my years behind the wheel, but nothing like this. At first, I thought it was just a simple ride like so many others. But what came after was something else, something that even today is hard for me to believe, and that's why I tell it. My name is Jake Morrison. I'm 52 years old, and I've been rolling on these highways for 26 years. My house is a 2018 Kenworth W900L, blue paint with chrome details, reliable as the sunrise. I've crossed every interstate from the Atlantic to the Pacific, but mostly I stick to the South and Midwest now, running freight from Nashville down through Atlanta, over to Memphis, up to Louisville. These roads know me and I know them. That Tuesday morning started like any other. I was sitting in my cab at the Flying J outside Nashville, watching the sun come up over the truck yard, coffee growing cold in my thermos. The CB radio crackled with the usual morning chatter, drivers checking weather reports and complaining about construction delays on a minus 40. I had a load of auto parts headed for El Paso. Nothing special, just another run that would put food on my table and diesel in my tank. I'd been divorced for 8 years by then, living alone in a small house outside Nashville when I wasn't on the road. My daughter Emily was finishing up nursing school in Atlanta, and my son Michael was studying engineering at UT. Good kids, both of them, though I wished I saw them more. The trucking life doesn't leave much room for family dinners and birthday parties, but it was the only life I knew. 26 years of highway stretching behind me, and I figured 26 more ahead if my back held out. The morning was perfect for driving. Clear skies, light traffic, temperature sitting right at 75 degrees. I pulled out of the truck stop around 8 a.m., merged onto a minus 40 west, and settled into the rhythm that had become second nature. The big Cummins engine hummed its familiar song, and I found myself thinking about Emily's graduation ceremony coming up in 2 months. She'd worked so hard for that nursing degree, pulling double shifts as a hospital aide to pay for school. Arkansas Highway rolled past my windshield like it had thousands of times before. Past Little Rock, through Russellville, the landscape opening up into those long stretches where you can see for miles in every direction. This was the part of the run I always enjoyed most, where the road was straight and the traffic light, where a man could think or listen to music, or just enjoy the feeling of covering ground. The CB had gone quiet around noon, which struck me as odd. Usually there's steady chatter between drivers, updates on speed traps and road conditions, jokes and complaints about dispatchers. But that day the radio stayed silent for long stretches, just the occasional crackle of static. I was somewhere around mile marker 127, about 30 miles east of Fort Smith, when I saw the steam. At first it looked like heat shimmer rising off the asphalt, but as I got closer I could see it was coming from under the hood of a small car pulled over on the shoulder. A white Honda Civic, maybe 10 years old, hazard lights blinking weakly in the afternoon sun. The hood was up, and I could see someone sitting in the shade beside the vehicle. Now, I've passed thousands of broken-down cars in my years on the road. Most of the time I'll call it in to the state patrol if I've got cell service, but I don't usually stop. Too many liability issues, too many ways a good deed can turn into a lawsuit or worse. But something about this scene made me ease off the throttle and start looking for a place to pull over. Maybe it was the way the person beside the car kept looking back down the highway, like they were expecting someone. Maybe it was the fact that they'd been sitting in that heat for who knows how long. Or maybe it was just that my daddy raised me to help folks in trouble, and 26 years of highway hadn't completely worn that out of me. I found a spot about 100 yards ahead where the shoulder was wide enough for my rig, set my flashers, and walked back. The heat hit me like a slap the moment I stepped out of the air-conditioned cab. Arkansas in July doesn't mess around. As I got closer, I could see it was a young woman and a little girl. The woman looked to be in her late 20s, Hispanic, with long dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was wearing jeans and a faded blue t-shirt, and even from a distance I could see she was exhausted. The little girl, maybe 6 years old, was curled up next to her mother, clutching a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. "Afternoon," I called out when I was still about 20 feet away. "No point in scaring them by walking up too close. Looks like you folks are having some car trouble." The woman's head snapped up, and I could see the wariness in her dark eyes. She pulled the little girl closer, and I realized they'd probably been sitting there wondering if every vehicle that passed might bring help or danger. "Yes, sir," she said, her voice hoarse from the heat. "Engine overheated about 3 hours ago. We've been waiting for it to cool down, but I think there's something wrong with the radiator." I walked over to look under the hood, keeping my movements slow and non-threatening. Sure enough, there was coolant all over the engine block, and I could see where a hose had split near the radiator. Nothing that couldn't be fixed with the right parts, but not something you could patch up on the roadside. "Well, the good news is it's not totaled," I said. "Bad news is you're going to need a tow truck and probably a new radiator hose. You got cell service out here?" She shook her head. "No bars for the last hour. We've been hoping someone would stop." That's when I noticed the bruising on her wrists, faint but definitely there, like someone had grabbed her hard. The little girl hadn't said a word, just watched me with big brown eyes that seemed too old for her face. "I'm Jake Morrison," I said, squatting down so I wasn't towering over them. "I drive truck, been on these roads for more years than I care to count. What's your name?" "Maya Rodriguez," she said after a moment's hesitation. "This is my daughter Sophia." "Well, Maya and Sophia, I can give you a ride to the next town. There's a truck stop about 40 miles up the road with a mechanic shop. They can send a tow truck back for your car." Maya's face went through a series of expressions, relief and fear, and something else I couldn't quite identify. "That's very kind of you, but we actually need to get to San Antonio. I know that's asking a lot, but I can pay for gas." San Antonio was 400 miles out of my way, but something in her voice made me look closer. The way she kept glancing down the highway, the way she held her daughter so tight, the bruises on her wrists. This wasn't just car trouble. "Ma'am, I don't mean to pry, but are you in some kind of trouble?" Maya's composure cracked then, and I could see tears forming in her eyes. "Please," she whispered. "I know how this looks, and I know you don't know us from Adam, but we really need help. I can't call the police. I just need to get Sophia somewhere safe." The little girl looked up at her mother, then at me. "Are you going to help us, Mr. Truck Driver?" That's when I knew I was going to do something that went against every bit of common sense I'd accumulated in 52 years of life. Call it instinct, call it stupidity, but looking at that scared woman and her daughter, I knew I couldn't just drive away. "Get your things," I said. "Let's get you folks out of this heat." I helped Maya and Sophia gather their few belongings from the Honda. There wasn't much, just a small duffel bag with clothes and Sophia's stuffed rabbit. As we walked back to my truck, Maya kept looking over her shoulder at the empty highway behind us, like she expected someone to come roaring up at any second. Getting them settled in my cab took some doing. The sleeper berth behind the driver's seat had enough room for Sophia to curl up with her rabbit, and Maya took the passenger seat. I could see her hands shaking as she buckled the seatbelt, whether from heat, exhaustion, or fear I couldn't tell. "So San Antonio," I said as I fired up the engine. "That's your sister?" "Yes, Carmen. She's been telling me to come stay with her for months." Maya's voice was quiet, and she kept one hand on Sophia's leg. I should have listened to her sooner. I pulled back onto I-40, adjusting my route in my head. Instead of continuing west toward Oklahoma City, I'd need to cut south through Dallas. It would add 12 hours to my trip and put me way behind schedule, but looking at Sophia's sleepy face in my rearview mirror, I knew I'd made the right choice. For the first hour, things felt almost normal. Sophia perked up once we got moving, fascinated by the CB radio and the way I could shift gears. She asked me about the buttons on my dashboard and why trucks were so much bigger than cars. Maya seemed to relax a little, though I noticed she never stopped watching the mirrors. That changed when we reached Texarkana. I was merging onto a Minus 30 South when Maya suddenly grabbed my arm. "That black SUV," she said, pointing to my side mirror. "It's been behind us for 20 miles. I looked back and saw it, a Chevy Tahoe with tinted windows, staying about 3 car lengths back. Could have been coincidence, but the way it had matched my speed changes for the last few exits didn't feel random. "Hold on," I said, and took the next exit without signaling. The SUV followed. I made a quick right turn into a gas station parking lot, then immediately pulled around back where we couldn't be seen from the road. My heart was pounding, and I realized whatever Maya was running from was catching up fast. "Who is it?" I asked. Maya's face had gone pale. "Carlos has friends everywhere, people who owe him favors." She pulled out an old flip phone that had been ringing on and off since we left Arkansas. This time she answered it. I could only hear her side of the conversation, but the fear in her voice told me everything I needed to know. She spoke in rapid Spanish, then hung up and immediately turned the phone off. "What did they say?" "They know I'm with a trucker. They know we're heading south." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Carlos is offering money to anyone who finds us." Sophia had gone quiet in the back, clutching her rabbit tighter. I realized this little girl had probably heard conversations like this before, probably learned to go silent when the grown-ups started talking about dangerous things. I made a decision that would haunt me for the next 24 hours. Instead of getting back on a Minus 30, I took back roads south. Farm roads and state highways that I'd learned during my early years trucking, when GPS wasn't reliable and you had to know your way around by memory. It added hours to our trip, but it also made us harder to track. Every time we passed through a small town, I'd check my mirrors for that black Tahoe or any other vehicle that seemed to be following us. Maya's phone kept ringing, but she'd stopped answering. Around sunset, we stopped at a small truck stop outside Marshall, Texas. I needed fuel and Sophia needed food and a bathroom break. While Maya took her daughter inside, I called my buddy Bobby, who ran freight out of Houston. "Jake, what the hell are you doing down here?" Bobby's voice crackled through the CB. "Thought you were headed to El Paso." "Change of plans." "Bobby, I need you to do me a favor and not ask questions. If anyone comes asking about me or my load, you haven't seen me. Can you do that?" There was a long pause. "How much trouble you in, brother?" "The kind where helping people might get me hurt, but not helping them will definitely get them hurt worse." "Copy that. You take care of yourself out there." When Maya and Sophia came back to the truck, I could see Maya had been crying. Sophia was carrying a candy bar and a small bottle of orange juice, probably the first real food she'd had all day. "Mr. Jake," Sophia said as I helped her back into the sleeper berth, "are the bad men going to find us?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. This little girl shouldn't have to worry about bad men finding her. She should be worried about homework and cartoons and whether she'd get to play outside after dinner. "Not if I can help it, sweetheart," I said, and I meant it. As we pulled back onto the road, Maya finally told me more of the truth. Carlos wasn't just an abusive boyfriend. He was involved in moving drugs through East Texas, using threats and violence to keep people quiet. Maya had been trying to leave him for 2 years, but every time she tried, he found her. "Last week I saw something I wasn't supposed to see," she said quietly, making sure Sophia couldn't hear. "A man came to the house to talk business with Carlos. They went out to the garage and I heard shouting, then I heard a gunshot." My blood went cold. "What did you do?" "I hid. When Carlos came back in, he was different, scared. He started making phone calls, telling people they needed to clean something up. That's when I knew I had to get Sophia away from there." "Did you go to the police?" "Carlos has connections everywhere. Police, judges, people in the system who owe him favors or are scared of him. The last woman who tried to testify against him ended up dead in a car accident." We drove through the night, taking back roads and avoiding major truck stops. Every set of headlights in my mirrors made my heart race. Every time Maya's phone rang, we both jumped. Sophia slept fitfully in the back, occasionally crying out in her dreams. By dawn, we were still 100 miles from San Antonio, but I was starting to think we might actually make it. That's when I noticed the white pickup truck that had been behind us for the last 30 miles, and my hope started to crumble. The white pickup had been following us since we crossed into Bixar County, matching my speed changes and staying just far enough back to avoid suspicion. I tried changing lanes and taking random exits, but it stayed with us like a shadow. Maya noticed it too, her knuckles white as she gripped the door handle. "We need to get off the highway," she said, her voice tight with fear. "There's a truck stop about 10 miles ahead. Maybe we can lose them there." I knew the place she meant, a big travel center just outside Austin where dozens of trucks came and went every hour. If we were going to disappear into a crowd, that was our best shot. But as I took the exit, I saw two more vehicles following us, a black sedan and another SUV. My stomach dropped as I realized we weren't dealing with one or two people anymore. The truck stop was busy with morning traffic, drivers grabbing coffee and breakfast before hitting the road. I found a parking spot between two other big rigs, hoping the cover would buy us some time. Maya was already reaching for her phone when it started ringing again. This time when she answered, I could hear the voice on the other end clearly. A man speaking English with a heavy accent, his tone leaving no doubt about his intentions. "You have something that belongs to us, Maya. We know you're with the truck driver. Make this easy on everyone and come outside." Maya's hand was shaking so hard she could barely hold the phone. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The phone, Maya, the one you took from the garage. We know you recorded what happened that night." I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. Maya had evidence of whatever Carlos had done, and these people would kill all of us to get it back. I looked back at Sophia, who was wide awake now, her big brown eyes moving between her mother and me. "I don't have any phone," Maya said, but her eyes darted to her duffel bag and I knew she was lying. "You have 5 minutes to come outside or we come in and get you. The trucker and the little girl don't have to get hurt, but that depends on how smart you want to be." Maya hung up and immediately started pulling things from her bag. At the bottom, wrapped in a towel, was a smartphone I hadn't seen before. Her hands were shaking as she turned it on. "Maya, what's on that phone?" Video of Carlos killing a federal agent. The man was wearing a wire, trying to get evidence about the drug operation. Carlos found out and shot him in our garage. Tears were streaming down her face. "I was supposed to go grocery shopping, but I came back because I forgot my purse. I saw the whole thing through the kitchen window. Why didn't you take this to the FBI?" "Because Carlos has people everywhere. The agent told me that before Carlos killed him. He said the operation goes all the way up to people in government, people who could make evidence disappear and witnesses die in accidents." Sophia crawled forward from the sleeper berth and wrapped her arms around her mother. "Mommy, are the bad men here?" Maya looked at me with desperate eyes. "Jake, I'm sorry I got you into this. Take Sophia and go. These people don't care about her, they just want me and the phone." "Like hell," I said, surprised by the anger in my own voice. "Nobody's splitting up this family." The word slipped out before I could stop it, but it felt right. Somewhere between Arkansas and Texas, these two strangers had become my family, and I wasn't about to let anyone hurt them. Through the windshield, I could see men getting out of vehicles around the parking lot. They weren't trying to hide anymore, just positioning themselves to cover all the exits. One of them was walking toward my truck, his hand inside his jacket. "Here's what we're going to do," I said, starting the engine. "You two get down and stay down. I know this place better than they do." I'd been coming to this truck stop for 15 years, knew every entrance and exit, every loading dock and service road. More importantly, I knew the layout of the old truck yard behind the main building, where broken-down rigs and abandoned trailers created a maze of hiding spots. I put the truck in gear and drove slowly toward the fuel island, like I was just another driver getting diesel. The man walking toward us changed direction to intercept me, but I was ready for him. When he stepped in front of my truck, I didn't slow down. He dove out of the way as I crashed through the plastic barriers around the fuel pumps, heading for the service road that led to the back of the property. In my mirrors, I could see the other vehicles scrambling to follow us, but my truck had a head start and better traction on the gravel roads. The old truck yard was exactly as I remembered it, a graveyard of abandoned trailers and rusted equipment. I drove deep into the maze, taking turns between rows of old containers until I found what I was looking for. A dead end surrounded by stacked shipping containers on 3 sides. I backed my truck into the space and shut off the engine. We were hidden from view, but we were also trapped. If they found us here, there would be nowhere to run. Maya, give me the phone. What are you going to do? Something that should have been done a long time ago. I was already dialing 911, but Maya grabbed my hand. Jake, you don't understand. Carlos has connections in law enforcement. If we call the police, some of these guys might be working for him. Then we call the FBI direct. You said that agent was federal, right? They'll want to know about this. Maya nodded slowly, then pulled up a contact on the evidence phone. Agent Martinez gave me this number before he went to meet Carlos. He said if anything happened to him, I should call his supervisor in Dallas. As she dialed the number, I heard vehicles driving through the truck yard, getting closer to our hiding spot. Sophia was crying quietly, and I realized this little girl was about to watch her whole world explode around her. Agent Martinez is dead, Maya said into the phone. I have video evidence of who killed him and why. We're at the truck stop outside Austin, and the people who killed him are here trying to kill us too. Through the containers, I could hear men shouting to each other, coordinating their search. We had maybe 5 minutes before they found our hiding spot. They're coming, I said. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that helping you two was the best decision I ever made. Sophia looked at me with those big brown eyes and said, "You're the best daddy truck driver in the whole world." That's when I knew I would fight the devil himself to keep these two safe. The FBI agent on the phone was all business. Agent Sarah Chen from the Dallas field office, and she knew exactly who Agent Martinez was and why he'd been investigating Carlos's operation. More importantly, she was already mobilizing a response team to our location. Stay hidden and stay on the line, she told Maya. We have units 20 minutes out, but you need to survive that long. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours when I could hear boots crunching on gravel getting closer to our hiding spot. Through the gap between shipping containers, I caught glimpses of at least 4 men spreading out through the truck yard, checking behind every trailer and abandoned rig. "Mommy, I'm scared," Sophia whispered, pressing her face against Maya's shoulder. "I know, baby. But Uncle Jake is going to keep us safe, okay? Uncle Jake." The title hit me harder than any punch I'd ever taken. This little girl who'd known me for less than 24 hours trusted me completely, and I'd rather die than let her down. The footsteps were getting closer. I could hear voices now, men communicating in Spanish about which areas they'd already searched. They were methodical, professional, and they weren't going to give up until they found us. "There," one of them called out in English. "Blue Kenworth back there behind the containers." My heart stopped. We'd been found. "Maya, take Sophia and hide in the sleeper berth. Lock the door and don't come out until you hear my voice or Agent Chen's people." "What are you going to do?" "Buy you time." I climbed down from the cab just as the first man rounded the corner of the shipping container. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 30, wearing jeans and a polo shirt like he was heading to a barbecue instead of a kidnapping. But the gun in his hand was all business. "Where are they?" he asked, pointing the weapon at my chest. "Where's who?" I kept my hands visible but ready. 26 years of trucking had kept me in decent shape, and my army training was still buried somewhere in my muscle memory. "Don't play stupid, old man. The woman and the kid. We know they're in your truck." "Haven't seen any woman and kid. Just been taking a break, checking my load." He smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Carlos said you might be difficult. He also said we could break a few bones if you didn't cooperate." 2 more men appeared from behind other containers, flanking me on both sides. I was outnumbered and outgunned, but I had something they didn't. I was fighting for family. The young guy made his first mistake by getting too close, probably thinking an old trucker wouldn't put up much of a fight. When he reached for my truck door, I grabbed his wrist and twisted, sending the gun skittering across the gravel. My Army drill sergeant would have been proud of that move. The second man rushed me, but I was ready for him. We went down hard between two trailers, rolling in the dirt and debris. He was stronger than me, but I was angrier. Every time I thought about Sophia's scared face, I fought harder. The third man was circling around to get a clear shot when the cavalry arrived. Black SUVs came roaring into the truck yard from 3 different directions, sirens wailing and blue lights flashing. FBI in big yellow letters across bulletproof vests, agents pouring out with weapons drawn and voices shouting commands. Federal agents, drop your weapons. The man I was wrestling with immediately let go and put his hands up. The young guy who'd lost his gun was already face down on the ground with an agent's knee in his back. The third man tried to run, but didn't make it 10 yards before he was tackled. Agent Chen was a small woman with steel in her eyes and complete command of the situation. She had the crime scene secured and the suspects in custody before I'd even caught my breath. "Mr. Morrison, I'm Agent Chen. Are Maya and Sophia safe?" "They're in my truck, scared but not hurt." Maya came out first, still holding the evidence phone, tears streaming down her face as she realized we'd actually survived. Sophia ran straight to me, wrapping her arms around my waist like she was never going to let go. "You did it, Uncle Jake. You saved us from the bad men." Agent Chen took possession of the phone and interviewed Maya for 2 hours right there in the truck yard. The video evidence was everything they needed to not only prosecute Carlos for murder, but to bring down the entire trafficking network that had protected him. The next few weeks were a blur of depositions, court appearances, and media attention I never wanted. My truck needed repairs from the chase, and some of my regular clients dropped their contracts because of all the publicity. For a while, I thought helping Maya and Sophia might have cost me my livelihood. But Maya found work as a translator for an immigrant advocacy group in Nashville, and Sophia started kindergarten at the same school where my daughter Emily had gone 20 years earlier. They moved into the spare bedroom of my house, supposedly just until Maya could save enough for her own place. That was 8 months ago, and neither of us has brought up apartment hunting lately. Sophia calls me Uncle Jake at school and tells her teacher about the time her truck driver daddy saved her from bad men. Maya cooks dinner most nights, and the house feels alive in a way it never did when I was rattling around there alone. My daughter Emily visits more often now, partly to meet the family that turned her father into a hero, and partly because she likes seeing me happy. She and Maya have become good friends, bonding over stories of stubborn men who think they don't need taking care of. Last month, Sophia graduated kindergarten. She insisted I wear my best shirt and sit in the front row like any other proud parent. When they called her name, she waved at me and shouted, "That's my Uncle Jake. He drives the biggest truck in the whole world." Carlos is serving life without parole, and his network has been dismantled. Maya still gets nervous in parking lots sometimes, but she sleeps through the night now. Sophia draws pictures of trucks and families and houses with 3 people standing in front of them. I'm sitting in my cab again this morning, same truck stop where this whole story started, but everything has changed. The coffee is the same, the CB chatter is the same, but there's a family photo tucked next to my CB radio now. 3 faces smiling back at me, reminding me that sometimes when you give everything away, you end up with everything you never knew you needed. I've got a load heading to Memphis this afternoon, but I'll be home for dinner tonight. Maya is making tamales, and Sophia wants to show me the book she's learning to read. These days, I always have a reason to come home.